we identified 53 influencers we wanted to study. After we had studied 13, we came back together and huddled and found that all 13 used the same methodology to create change, which we thought we'd get a lot of different methodologies, a lot of different strategies, and we'd kind of clean out best practices, you know. They were all using the same method. You know what was even more shocking? It was the method we used to change corporate culture. The reason we use that method to change corporate culture is one of my co-founders and co-authors, in fact, Kerry Patterson, was mentioned in my introduction. He and our Vice President of Research, David Maxfield, studied together, working on their PhD in psychology at Stanford from Albert Bandura. We got back with these 13 and we said, do you know Albert Bandura? They had all studied under Albert Bandura or studied under someone who studied under Albert Bandura. Albert Bandura is a child psychologist at Stanford. And he's the most cited psychologist of the last decade. As you look at professional articles, he's the most cited. Well, what we found, we continued our study. Of the 53, there are only 2 who hadn't studied under Albert Bandura or studied under someone who studied under Albert Bandura. And through trial and error, they came up with his approach, and it worked. The reason I mention this is not to aggrandize Albert Bandura, but to say that in fact, resident right now on this planet are a lot of people who know how to solve the problems you and I wrestle with. Some of the problems that you and I have given up on. There are people who have solved these, but not others know about it. It's not widely distributed. It's not been diffused. That's part of our mission. Here's the method. Now, as we interviewed these influencers, they usually had lists and strategies and techniques. What we did is we studied their lists and strategies and techniques, and we just formed it into a model that's easily adaptable and others can use. It's actually quite simple. It looks a little complicated. We found, and this won't shock you, that every single influencer started with results. What are we trying to change? Okay? How will we know when we've changed it? They are measurement maniacs. They want to know what's our goal, how will we know when we're moving toward it, how will we know when we reach it, specific, measurable, time bound. And I'm guessing you guys could each teach courses on establishing desired results, so I'm not going to take any time there. The thing that wasn't so intuitive is the way they did it was they focused on behavior. They didn't focus on character traits. They didn't focus on personality. They focused on behavior. What do we want people to do differently? What do we want them to stop doing? What's the behavior change we're looking for? And they chose behaviors that, when people do it regularly, consistently, every time, all the time, produce those results. A direct link, not indirect. Direct. When people do this, this happens. Now we find for some of these changes, 100 different behaviors are required. But what the influencers would do is they would say, what are the few most vital behaviors? We're not going to monitor 100 behaviors. We're going to pick the 2 or 3 most vital behaviors that, if routinely enacted, will lead to the result we want. In other words, they found that behaviors are bundled. And when someone does a vital behavior, the whole bundle changes for them. It's kind of like dominoes. You push the first one over, the rest follow. So they would identify 2 or 3 vital behaviors, what we want people to do every time, all the time, without exception. And if people do these, it'll produce the result we want. So for example, Don Hopkins down at the Carter Center, what he found is the guinea worm, there's no vaccine to prevent it. There's no medicine that'll cure it. What people have to do is filter their water every time, all the time. Any water used for cooking or consumption, they have to filter it. And anyone who has the disease or the parasite can't go near the water. Because as the parasite comes out of your body, it creates horrible, horrific, burning pain. And the only relief is to put that part of the body in the water. And it instantly gives you cooling relief. But then the blisters burst, and the parasite releases 100,000 eggs into the water source. So he found if you can get everyone, one exception will not let you eradicate the worm. But if everyone filters their water, and no one who's got the disease goes near the water for 1 year, it's gone. It can't recycle, it can't be reborn, it's gone. And you're free of the guinea worm, everyone who uses this water source. One person violates it, then the worm's back. So that's an example of vital behavior. By focusing on that, getting people to do that, you get the result you want. Let me give you a couple of quick examples. Say the result you want is you want to hit 2 million in sales by the end of the quarter, and you manage a sales team. You look, what's the difference between a sales team that's stagnant or declining and one that's successful, stagnant or declining, and one that's successful and climbing? What does one do the other doesn't? Look for the positive deviation. When you find that, you got your vital behavior. Find the difference between the successful ones and the unsuccessful ones. The successful ones make 10 cold calls a day to keep the pipeline filled. The unsuccessful ones do 5 or 3 or 2. So if everyone all the time will do 10 a day, you'll hit the result. See what we're talking about by vital behavior? Okay. Another example. You want to lose 3 inches from your waist by December. There are many ways to do it, many strategies. For you, the vital behavior might be doing 30 minutes of cardio exercise daily. If you'll do that, then the pounds will come off. Sometimes it takes analyze and adjust, experimentation. Are these the set of behaviors that produce it? Not quite. Let's modify it. How about these? That does it. Make sense? Okay? Remember, behaviors are actions, not results or qualities. You're not looking to get people to be courageous. No. You're looking to get people to speak up when something's going wrong. That's behavior. Make sense? All right? Now let me show you the huge, big idea. It has to do with getting people to do the vital behaviors. It's pretty easy to identify them. How do you get them to do them? Well, we found for most complex problems, there's not one cause. And yet as leaders, we're always looking for the magic pill that'll solve the problem. There's not one cause for most problems. There's a conspiracy of causes. It's like our lives are perfectly organized to get us to do what we're currently doing. If you want to change your eating, you have to change the way your world is organized. It's like the universe is conspiring against you to have you stay the way you are and not change. You want to make a change, you got to change the way your world's organized. Now, some believe that a tinfoil cap will protect you from the aliens probing rays. Perhaps it works for some people. But if you want to influence a persistent problem, you'll need to draw on many sources of influence. We identified through our study there are 6 sources of influence that influence people to do what they're doing and continue doing what they're doing.